You're listening to the Lynchburg Hornets Sports Podcast, a podcast about Lynchburg sports. Howdy, folks. Welcome to episode 3 of the Lynchburg Hornets Sports Podcast, a podcast about Lynchburg sports. My name is Tim LaDuca. I'm your host and the Director of Athletic Communications here at University of Lynchburg, and I'm really excited to be bringing you our third rendition of this podcast. We recorded it with Lexi Powell, a senior on the softball team, and the associate head women's soccer coach, Natalie Deacon, just talking to them about game day preparation. Lexi is, she's in full swing with the softball team right now. She homered in her first game with the softball team last week on opening day, and that's an important thing to note because we talk about home runs with Lexi Powell. She also caught, which is, we didn't get into that. She's usually an outfielder, but she was behind the plate for game 2, so that's something fun for the senior getting back in the catcher's gear. And with Natalie Deacon, just a really good conversation with her. A really storied and historic women's soccer program that she's a part of. She also gets into being on the track and field team. And it's really interesting to get an inside look on that women's soccer team that's been so successful. Not only just my time here in the last couple of years, but in the entire time that head coach Todd Olson has been here. He's been doing a great job with that team and just the direction they're on. And with Natalie Deacon as the associate head coach, it's been really fun to cover their program. So without further ado, Sam Rice, the director of digital media, has challenged me to keep these under 2 minutes at the intro, and we're at 1 minute and 43 seconds. So I'm just going to hop off now and let the interviews carry us the rest of the way. First up is Lexi Powell. Okay, we're here with Lexi Powell, a senior on the Lynchburg softball team. Lexi, how are you doing today?
I'm good. How about you?
Good. It's good to be in the podcast studio working, and it's fun to have student athletes, especially like you, come in and talk. It's good to get to know some personalities. I see you at basketball games. You know, right now it's the winter season, and you're always in the front row cheering along. What's it like, just being a part of this great campus and really competitive athletic teams?
It's honestly amazing. I feel like as a student athlete, just supporting other athletes, it's a hard thing to do. It's my 4th year, so the grind never stops, and you always want to cheer on your teammates, your friends, anything around, and this campus is amazing, and everyone supports everyone, so it's always good.
A lot of support, especially from family members. I bet as a student athlete, you've played with a lot of family members. Can you walk me through the family tree of the Powells in Lynchburg softball?
Yeah, so my older sister graduated from here in 2016. Her name was Danielle Powell. She was a 4-year starter here, and she also coached me for about 2 or 3 years. And then I also have a middle sister, which graduated from here in 2021, and I played 2 seasons with her. And it was pretty cool. Like, trying to play with your sister sometimes is rough, but definitely good experiences. We've shared a lot of memories, and it's always been fun. We always have every single family member here to cheer us on, so it's always good. And I also now play with my cousin, we're 10 days apart. So it's a big family tree, and we've played since we were little together. So it's really fun to end our career together.
So what was the plan? Was it that Danielle comes to Lynchburg and you fall in love with it as she's here? Or was it just you want to go pave your own path? It just ended up Lynchburg was also the perfect place for you.
I actually was so adamant on not coming to Lynchburg because both my sisters ended up coming here. And I just kept coming to camps here, and it's like I fell in love with Coach Simmons and the staff and all the girls. And I was like, it's just what I wanted. And I'm also a very homebody person, so it's about an hour drive for me, so it's not too far, which was really nice. And the campus is beautiful. So I just fell in love with the program, and I was really not wanting to come to Lynchburg, but it just happened to God came to Lynchburg.
Yeah. We want to hammer home. You didn't want to only because you didn't want to follow your sisters.
Correct.
That was the only
Correct.
Bad thing about it. Everything else was great.
Correct.
And now you're happy you're here.
Yes.
One more question before we get into the theme for today's episode. Do we have to consider you a home run hitter?
You must consider me a home run hitter now because I at least have one.
Yeah.
Correct.
Is the rumor true that you didn't have one in high school ever?
No, I've had 3 in high school.
Okay.
And then I've only had one here, and I honestly thought it wasn't going to be a home run until everyone was jumping up, screaming at me. I was like, oh my gosh.
Sweet. No, that was a good memory.
Yes.
So, yeah, we just know we got to respect you as a home run
That's
hitter.
correct. That's correct.
Yeah.
Maybe one more, 2 more this year, so you never know.
Okay, so when you get into the batter's box, I played baseball in high school. I was not good. And just never got to the college level. I'm always interested to know about what the game day preparation is and what kind of resources you have to your disposal. How did the coaches get you set up? So the first thing I want to know is, let's say we're playing, the first ODAC game of the year, and we're playing Roanoke. What kind of resources do you have to get prepared to take at bats against them?
We get game day stuff from like previous games for them, just kind of like what their pitch sequences almost. I mean, college film is so big now, so we're able to we can go back and watch film ourselves for other games and just be able to like really hone in, like if it's a more outside pitcher or more inside pitcher, we're able to focus more on practice the day before and just really hone in on like if they're faster or slower, you can be able to adjust throughout the speed, and just preparation the game before is the most important, I think, for us. And we just really trying to hone in on what we learned from previous games with them. So.
Softball's interesting, wherein you're going to see a pitcher a lot and you're going to see him the whole game. How do your at-bats change from the first time you maybe see a pitcher to now that you're a senior, you've played against a lot of these players a lot? How do you think your at-bats are changing?
I think my freshman year, it was like no one knew who I was, so they never knew what to pitch me.
Okay.
And so it was easier to, get hit better off of them. But as you get older, they know your weaknesses. So you really have to try to hone in on your weaknesses yourself, which can be a struggle alone because you don't want to point out your weaknesses. So definitely having to work on my weaknesses more instead of my strengths, because they know exactly what to pitch me or not what to pitch me to get a hit off of them.
So that's interesting. You've built a film, so when you watch yourself, I'm struggling with this pitch. They're probably no.
Correct.
So now you need to get in the cage and
Correct.
work on that pitch.
Yep.
Okay.
The past couple of years, I've definitely worked more on my weaknesses more than my strengths. So
okay.
It's definitely different. Like I definitely say my freshman year, I had the number on most ODAC pitchers, and my sophomore year they had the number more on me. Mm-hmm. So
then flip it onto defense. You're a really fun player to watch out there. What kind of scouting reports do you get on defense?
We watch film again. We get told if they're more power hitters or if they're more like short hitters. So we need to play farther in for outfield, or we need to play farther back. So mostly defense is just kind of for the pitchers to know, and then we just kind of base off like how they hit our pitchers compared to other pitchers as well.
Are you aware of the pitch calling? Do you know what pitch is coming?
Yes, everyone knows on our team what's being called, what every play that's going on, so we're never like unaware.
Gotcha. And are these signs coming from, I don't want to give away too many secrets, but are you like looking at a card in your hat, in your back pocket?
Nope, our signs are from our coaches, and then our catchers also call our pitching signs, so they get relayed from infield, outfield, and that's how we go.
Cool. We have a fun relationship, with sports information and the softball team, because no matter how prepared I am before the game, it always catches me off guard when the team is yelling from the dugout, "Start the music!" So tell me a little bit about your team's pregame routine. Every player is different, but it seems like Lynchburg softball really has something that they do as a unit.
Yeah, we all start together. We get there about an hour and 15 minutes early, and we all run out to one song and one song only. We try to change it, and we had the worst juju, we swear. And so we all start, like one starts on one end, one starts the other end, and we just all come together. And it gets us really hyped before games, and especially big games. And it's just something for as long as I've known, and I've been here so many years watching my sisters play as well, like they've always run out to the song. So it's like, wow, this is crazy.
What do you do on the road?
We all kind of do our own thing. About 15 minutes before we get there, we all put our phones down and everything, and we start listening to music. So a lot of people will do their hair, or they'll just kind of hone in and like worry about who they're playing, what they're doing, and what we want to succead together as. And then we all do the same routine. We just don't have our music, basically.
You can listen to it in your headphones at least, maybe.
We keep headphones on the bus, everything. We're all together. We stay as one.
Okay.
So.
Gotcha. Okay. What about maybe a little bit before the game, before you get to the field? What's going on for you on a game day? a lot of times you have class before. What's your preparation from kind of the time you wake up to first pitch?
Especially if we have a game day during the week, I just try to make sure I'm up earlier than I should be, make sure I'm ready, have my uniform ready, get a nice breakfast and eat, make sure I'm like fueled. And then I really just kind of get my head right. I don't try to focus on too much. I try to focus on what's a task at hand every hour of the day. And then I'm getting down to the field, preparing myself for who I'm playing no matter what, and just preparing for that first pitch.
Cool. You guys have a lot of uniform combinations. What's your favorite uniform combo?
I think my favorite uniform combo now is our red jerseys, red belt, black pants, and L socks.
Okay. We have multiple socks?
Yes, we have L socks, red socks, and black socks.
L socks.
Yes.
What color are the L socks? Black with
the
a
L
red
socks
L?
are red.
Yeah.
I mean black with red stripes.
Gotcha. Okay.
And the L is red.
How does the preparation change compared from a regular season game to going into ODAX? How is games different then?
They're just more competitive. Like we're a very competitive group, but I think once we played the team twice, we already know what we did in between previous. So we take the stuff they've done from other ODAC teams, and we take our games that we played during regular season, and we just really try to hone in on weaknesses that we did during those games, and then really amplify our strengths as well. So being more competitive, being more aware of the game, of what we did against them, and what they've done before regular season ended.
Dawn Simmons has been here for a very long time. She's one of our most accomplished coaches, and so many of the coaches have been here so long, but she's up there as one of the greatest. Tell me what it's like playing for Dawn Simmons.
Playing with Coach Simmons has been amazing. I've known her before I coached, and everyone always thinks she's so mean, but she is the biggest teddy bear that you can ever meet. She's a great person. We have an amazing coaching staff, and they work so well together. And just knowing Coach Simmons has been a great gift, and she has taught me more about the game, and she also has taught me so much more about life, and I can never thank her more. For sure.
Yeah, and Dawn has worked really hard. She's been able to get the new field for you down at Moon Field, the renovations. What does it mean that since when you got here 4 years ago to see all the changes that are happening in the Lynchburg softball program, cosmetically to the field and any other aspects?
I think it just shows that she has proved herself time after time, and she's finally getting the field that she deserves. Like she tells us all the time how when she played here, they didn't have a fence. They tore that fence down every time they played or every season. So it definitely just shows that she's built so much for this program, and that each and every season, every girl that's left or been still here is showing that we deserve everything we get, and we try our hardest to prove that to everybody.
Awesome. Well, now you're getting a double dip today. We're going to move from the podcast now to Lynchburg Reels. Have you seen Lynchburg Reels online?
I have. I'm a little scared with the questions. I'm not prepared yet.
I think I got some good ones for you. So we'll see how that is. You can check out Lynchburg Reels on our Instagram. It's also on our YouTube to see Lexi Powell on there. But in the meantime, thanks a lot for sitting down, Lexi.
Thank you.
Let me get a Go Hornets.
Go Hornets!
Alrighty, we're here with the Associate Head Women's Soccer Coach, Natalie Deacon. Natalie, you've been around Lynchburg for a long time, but why don't you just tell me a little bit about your history with the Hornets going back to when you were recruited here?
Awesome. Thanks for having me on, Tim. Yeah, so have a little bit of a unique recruiting story. So originally I'm from the Philadelphia area, Westchester, Pennsylvania, and I actually played high school soccer with Todd Olson's niece. So shout out to Emily Cornett. That's actually how I originally heard of Lynchburg. So Coach's one sister and his one brother both live in Westchester. And so his brother would come to my high school soccer games and say, Nat, you've got to check out Lynchburg. And I would always kind of say to my parents, I've never heard of this place. Don't really think I want to check it out. Nonetheless, they thought it could be a good fit for me. So we checked it out and kind of just fell in love with Coach Olson's philosophy about not only wanting to be a really competitive soccer team, but also wanting it to be about more than just soccer. And that's something that has always kind of stuck with me throughout my life. Trying to integrate service, trying to integrate just being passionate about being a good teammate, a good person. And so really just fell in love with the campus as a whole and Coach Olson's philosophy.
Yeah, and something unique about Lynchburg that I don't know how common it is, but I know a lot of student athletes who at the time said this was not an option anywhere else. But you also ran track here. Talk about being a multi-sport athlete at such a competitive institution.
Yeah, so my history with track goes way back to high school, which not a lot of people are familiar with. But typically the question I would get asked in high school is, where are you going to run track in college? And so it surprised a lot of people when I chose soccer, but really just loved the aspect of being a part of something bigger than yourself. And so ultimately kind of chose the team sport route for college. Had some options to compete in track and field at a pretty high level, and ultimately I actually chose to come to Lynchburg to do both. My freshman season, I fell in love with the women's soccer team and basically made the decision that for the first time in my life I wanted to really just focus on one sport. And so I decided, to a lot of people's surprise, to just play soccer for the next few years. Obviously it worked out. I was able to develop as a player and get a lot of time on a national championship team my sophomore year. But entering into my senior year, I went to Coach Jake Reed, and I said, "Hey, Coach, I would love to run track my senior year when soccer's over, if that's something that interests you." And I actually remember going to that meeting, and I had every single time that I'd ever raced in high school, and I had every single day of my workouts from track in high school. And so I gave that to him, and he kind of looked at it and was like, Nat, we can make this work. If you help us a little bit with our culture, we're a new staff, a new culture in the track and field program, we'll let you run. And so that was kind of our agreement, and then was able to compete in track and field, indoor and outdoor, my senior year, and then also my fifth year.
And an All-American, and how many events?
Yeah, so I was two-time All-American in the indoor mile, and then once in the outdoor 1500.
How much did soccer affect your running in track? You hadn't run track since high school, as you're saying, but you were still able to compete at the highest level. Was that just something you had in the tank held over from high school, or did soccer really help you? Do you think you became a better track runner because of soccer?
Absolutely. So I'm a really big advocate for dual sport athletes, and I think that you learn so much competing in different sports. And, I think soccer creates in me this really competitive person that's able to kind of use tactics in races. And so, transferring over into track, I was the person that would do research on every single person in my race before I'd run, which is not super common for a track and field athlete. So I knew which runners got out quick. I knew which runners, had good speed at the end. And so I was able to kind of think through tactics from that standpoint. But absolutely, I think, both sports helped each other. And, I think running track in high school really ultimately made me into the athlete that I was, in college as a soccer player as well.
Well, I did want to get into the national championship and then cover the service that women's soccer does, but you just led us right into our theme for this episode, and that's preparing for game day. So I want to ask you about, the first off, scouting each game. How much can you learn from watching film on a team, and does that always really positively affect the outcome, or can it sometimes hurt?
Great question. So I think, ultimately our theory when we're preparing for games, it kind of aligns. There's a great quote by Dabo Sweeney at Clemson. And in preparing for games, he always says, our goal is to not lose to Clemson. We don't lose to Clemson. And I think that's what Coach Olson has kind of instilled in our staff over the years and in the team, is that, hey, we're going to approach this game and we're not going to lose to Lynchburg. And so we want to, step on the field for every single game day and play the best brand of Lynchburg soccer that we can play. Ultimately, are we going to scout the opponents and prepare our team as best we can? No doubt about it. I think the trick in that is taking all the information that we see on film as coaches and then trying to narrow it down to what's the most important information we can give to the team without overloading them with too much information. But at the end of the day, we want to step on the field. We want to play good Lynchburg soccer. We want other teams to have to defend us, to have to scout us out. But we want our players, first and foremost, to be thinking, what are the coaches asking me to do? How can I do that to the best of my ability? And then taking the few scouting pieces that we give them, just so that they can be best prepared for the game as a whole and not have any surprises out there.
who on your staff is watching film and breaking it down ahead of a game day, and how soon do the players watch Roanoke film if we're playing Roanoke on Saturday?
Yeah, another good question. So I think just in my role as the assistant, I definitely do a lot of it, but I think that's something that us as a staff, we all watch film and kind of see what's important. I think getting different perspectives is really important. There's some things that Coach will pick up on. Matt Newton loves watching film, so some stuff Matt will pick up on that maybe I don't see, and so it's great being able to talk through that with them. When we're preparing for games, we actually do not have our team watch opponent film. So we'll watch kind of some clips of our games. We'll pull in different positional groups, but we actually do not have our team watch opponent film. So again, we want our mindset to be, hey, we're not going to lose to Lynchburg, and that be our main focus.
Yeah, traveling with your team to the national tournament, sometimes we'll be playing in the second game and hearing Coach Olson say, do not watch that first game. Can you elaborate a little bit on why you don't want the players seeing the team that they're going to play soon?
Yeah, definitely. So I think, it's really easy for players to see a few things and then to start telling each other and coaching each other, hey, we should do this or we should do that. And at the end of the day, we want it to be a very unified approach. And so we're going to watch the game. We're going to give them the information that we think is most important. But for the most part, we don't want them being intimidated by a player or watching a team and thinking, they're not that good. We want them, again, to be focused on our game plan, to enter every single game like it's the biggest game of the season. And I think sometimes, if you're going to watch opponent film, you might realize, we're a superior team, and then not get off the bus and make it more interesting than it should be.
So in order to have everyone playing the same brand of soccer, they, if one person is watching that film and they say, I think I know how to attack this, and they may not even communicate it to the rest of their teammates, and then they could be out of position.
Correct, yeah. So we want to just try and create the utmost unity.
That I feel like that's a unique perspective. Have you heard other coaches doing similar things, or is this kind of a unique way to attack preparation on game day?
Yeah, I think it's unique to some degree, but I also think, even talking with our men's staff, that at the end of the day, it's us trying to give our players the most important information and not throw at them our entire scouting report. So sometimes that might be information overload, and ultimately will lead them to kind of overthinking things on the field and not focusing on what we need to do to have success, but being so worried about, what an opponent is doing. So
during practice, are you running a scout team? Are you having the other side of the ball practice looks and everything like that?
Yeah, so kind of how we'll structure a practice the day before our game is we'll kind of get our board out on the field. We'll go over some key things about what the team can expect to see from our opponent the next day or, in the next 2 days. We'll kind of review their shape, how we're going to defend that formation, and then we'll talk a little bit about some keys to our success. And then we'll typically kind of do a walkthrough on the field, again, highlighting maybe a few set pieces or dangerous players that they might have on the team. But then, again, a lot of our pregame practice is going to be us focusing on, hey, what do we need to do to have success?
Gotcha. Your schedule has a lot of ups and downs in the year. You play really amazing opponents every year. Emory's always on the schedule. CNU, who was the defending national champions, came to town last year. The really high-level opponents, how can that affect other games that maybe won't be the most competitive?
Yeah, it's a challenge. I think as a coaching staff, some of those games that, from a numbers standpoint, from a schedule standpoint, it might look like they're weaker opponents. Those are some of the games that, personally I get the most nervous because I know that our players are seeing those same things, and they might, walk into the locker room that day and say, it's an easier opponent, and take them lightly from the get-go. And those are the games you really get into trouble. Frankly, we had 2 of those games this past season, and it really, really hurt us at the end of the day. And so, typically we know teams are going to get up for those big opponents, but it's sometimes, on paper, those weaker opponents that can cause you the most trouble. So,
your pregame routine on the field is very recognizable. You're coming on the field at the exact same time every game. How much has the pregame routine changed from when you were here, if at all? And why do you think that going through the same exact motion is very important?
Yeah, not too much has changed since I play. It's actually really special. We have some alums come back from the late 90s, early 2000s, and the first 15 minutes of our warm-up has not changed since they played. And I think that's a really cool legacy that our team is a part of. And, I'm a big believer of routine, so I think when our team approaches game day, we want it to be rhythmic. We want them to have comfort in that rhythm. And we don't want them to have to be thinking about too much during that warm-up, but just kind of getting into a groove. We think that there's a ton of psychological studies about the importance of routine on a game day to just kind of settling in and being in a good place mentally. I also think, talking about those first 15 minutes of our warm-up, just reflecting on the legacy that's come before players. There's a song on our warm-up mix. It's the third song that's always played, and it's in honor of Anna Wright, who was a member of our program. That passed away in a car accident leading into her senior year. And so she was part of the 2009 Final Four team and passed away tragically later that summer. And that song was Anna Wright's favorite song. And so that's always the third song that's on our warm-up playlist in honor of her. And so I think there's a lot of just legacy built into our warm-up. Alums love coming back and watching it because it kind of, gives you chills and you can remember what that felt like. Yeah. So definitely a lot of legacy built in.
That's awesome. Speaking of legacy, we're coming up on 10 years to the national championship team that you were a part of. I talked to Travis Beasley, who coached the national championship baseball team this year in 2023, and he said he's most excited to be 10 years from now and have everyone come back and talk about it. Do you have a lot of emotions still from that championship? How do you remember that game 10 years after the fact?
I think I blacked out during it, so I'm not quite sure how much I remember the actual game. But definitely a special season. I think at the end of the day, it's not just about that one game, but it's about all of the games that built towards it. And was just fortunate to be a really, really special season. So we had 27 wins that year. We walked away from 28 games actually as the victors, so we tied one in the NCAA tournament. But just a really, really special group of people. Like any team, it's not like everyone was a total best friend, but it was a team that really loved each other and had a massive amount of respect for each other. And it was just a lot of fun going on that journey. And I think, each game we won, it was just kind of, hey, let's win the next one, and not getting too far ahead of ourselves. So just, huge shout out to that entire team's mentality, our parents' mentality, our coaching staff's mentality. And I think at the end of the season, you win that last game and you're still in this, what's the next game? Just got to win the next game, and you realize, oh, we kind of did it all. And so definitely a lot of emotions with it. In our NCAA tournament run, we definitely faced a lot of adversity. The National Player of the Year, Angela Bosco, went down in our Sweet 16 game, and the next day, we had to beat Messiah, who was, I think, number one in the country at the time, without, arguably the best player in the country. And just that was a group that was able to come together in that moment and really do something special. So it's a ton of fun reflecting on it. Great group, and hopefully we can get them all together this upcoming year.
Yeah, I'm really excited to celebrate that. I was not here at Lynchburg, but it's one of the first things I learned about Lynchburg when I got here is women's soccer. They're the first national champion in Lynchburg history. Now we've added a few more, and it's really fun, being a part of this journey for all of our sports. Off the soccer field a little bit, because soccer is still a part of what you all do overseas when you travel to other countries. But tell me about some of the service trips that Todd Olson has brought you on that you've been a part of, and why you think it's important building Lynchburg's culture.
Yeah, so the first time I actually heard of some of the service that Coach Olson does was actually from his niece. So I remember sitting at my high school and helping her do an equipment fundraiser. She was collecting a lot of equipment to go to a place called Gulu in Uganda, and she was going with her Uncle Todd. I had no clue who her Uncle Todd was. And I sat there with her for a few hours, and we collected a ton of cleats and soccer balls, and so it's pretty full circle, for 4 years later for me to be standing in Gulu, Uganda, experiencing a lot of the things that Emily had told me about that day. And so Coach has been going to East Africa, primarily Uganda, a little bit of Kenya, and recently Rwanda. But he's been traveling there for about 20 plus years now, and he's brought about 50 student athletes over that time via study abroad trips. And so it's a really important part of our team's DNA, just the element of service. And I think Coach has done an incredible job instilling that in the program over the years. And basically when we go abroad, the emphasis is using the soccer ball to get into communities, to build relationships, and then to be able to share knowledge that's going to positively impact communities. So whether that's public health, recently we've been doing a lot of women's empowerment conversations with not just the girls and women, but also the boys and men in those communities. And just seeing some of that generational change take place is pretty special. So I think, players that go on those trips ultimately come back to the U.S. and they have a very different mindset about, hey, how can I serve my teammates, and what does it look like to be selfless, and also just having some gratitude. So I think we're given so much. We get to play on a beautiful turf field. We get a college education. We have these incredible, Adidas custom uniforms, and those are things that, when we go to Uganda and we're playing on a dirt field with a banana ball, and most players out there have no shoes, they're playing barefoot, and they're just grateful for the opportunity to play. And I think so often we just take the opportunity to play the game for granted. So definitely is kind of a perspective shift for our players that are able to go on some of those trips.
And then finally, a little closer to home, you were a part of my interview process when I first came here, and the question I remember you asking me is, what do you like about Lynchburg? And I think at the time you were asking about the city, and I probably answered about the school. I hadn't done my research about Lynchburg as a city at the time. We've done interviews together as well, and that's always the question that you like to ask. Why are you so proud to be working here at Lynchburg, and why do you want to make sure that the people who come here know what they're getting themselves into?
Yeah, it's a cliche line, but I think that, Lynchburg to me represents family. I look at the coaching staff that I get to be a part of, and a lot of us have been on this staff together now for, 6, 7 plus years together. And so every single day I get to go to work, and I get to do that with friends. That's super special. Within our athletic department, we have coaches that have been here for, 20 plus years, and they have a friendship that's unique and a support of other sports teams that's unique. And so as an athletic department, I think, again, there's that concept of family and feeling at home here and cared for. Within just the greater Lynchburg community, we are a smaller school, which I love. I think that's something that's just super, super special, where you can walk through the Dell and be able to greet 10 different people by name and know a little bit about their story. And so I think for me, that's kind of what drew me to Lynchburg, was that family aspect, and it's definitely kept me here.
Sweet. Well, I had a really good time sitting down talking to you. I know our listeners did too. So, Natalie, thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Tim.
Go Hornets.
Go Berg.